Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Saturday, October 11th, 2025. I just connected Facebook up to this whole stream thing and it's not streaming, so that's kind of funny. They're trying to claim Antifa is not organized. It's not an organization and it doesn't really exist. And we've got a whole series of tabs about that this morning. War with China, economic war with China. Donald Trump says yes. Donald Trump says China will not continue doing what it's doing. And the market is already responding. And basically, the countdown is on because Trump's got till Sunday night, Monday morning, when the market's open, to correct this, or there may be some problems. So says some of the experts, and I find that interesting, plausible. Very, very plausible. I don't know for sure because, I'm not a money guy, but seems plausible. And some people are even saying black swan event. I don't know. We'll see. Sometimes when they say biggest snowstorm of the year, biggest thing that you ever did see, right? 20 feet of snow, the whole thing, it's going to be crazy. And then you go out the next day and you're like, this is it? It's barely covering my shoes here. Like, come on, right? So the more they pump it up, the less I believe it. Polyev wants to run the same campaign as Carney again. You know what he's talking about? He wants to be an energy superpower. Ha. Come on. Are you okay? Sure. That's totally going to work. Let's run a flaccid campaign right next to the Liberals' government-funded campaign. Perfect. That sounds like a brilliant strategy, Polyev. Automatic tax filing and permanent food school programs are coming in the budget. So these are supposed to be cost savings, but it seems like, again, infantilization of the population. We'll do your taxes. Don't worry. We'll tell you how much you earned. We'll tell you how much tax we need. We'll take it from you. And if you don't comply, we will crush you and throw you in jail. So it doesn't seem like it's not sitting right with me. I don't think I like it. The racist gym backed down. So I told you that there was a gym that was charging white people $30, double what they were charging any other race. And so I said I would identify as any other race and get that lower price. And I guess there was a backlash and people were saying like, you can't do that. And so the gym has backed down from their race-based pricing. And I guess everybody's $30 a month now, or no, I don't know. What else? The NDP want to nationalize food. And so that seems very Stalinist of them, doesn't it? Right? Like that seems like a really bad idea that has been tried in history and failed over and over and over again, right? That wasn't real public grocery stores, right? I don't think so. This isn't going to work for me. I don't want communists taking over the government at every level. And it does seem like that's where we're already at. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to start with hate speech and speech laws. And it is very concerning what's going on. C2, C8, and C9 are all attacking free speech from various angles. And they're targeting speech in a specific way while leaving speech that would be hate speech. That speech is allowed to continue. And so they are curating speech using the apparatus of the state, and it's very, very concerning. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Greg. And Greg says, these are hate symbols, and he's got the anti-fascist flag and the Pride Progress flag, which the Pride flag, just the rainbow, that was one thing. And if you've read anything about the Bible says that the rainbow is God's promise, like God's the representative of the accord between like God and humans, I guess. I'm not a Bible scholar, so apologies if I'm slaughtering that. I'm just trying to give the 30,000-foot look. And the LGBT group took that and made it their symbol. Like, that's pretty gauche. And then now they just made it ugly. Like, what? Anyway, regardless of all that, Greg explains why these are hate symbols. I agree with him. He says they denote hate towards straight white Christian conservatives. If you fly these flags, you likely celebrate burning churches and Charlie Kirk's murder. They're not included in C9, the quote combating hate bill, because this form of hate is government funded. So this isn't bad. You can post all this stuff because the government is encouraging you to post all of this stuff because they are in fact very, very hateful themselves. Here is Juno News. And, I hope there's some error here. Oh, it's a printing error, so we're okay. Bad image. I'll have to deal with that later. Juno News is reporting the Civil Liberties Group warns if Bill C9 could jail Canadians for feelings of hate. Justice Minister Fraser's new hate crime bill, C9, has critics worried that it might give judges and police power to put Canadians behind bars based on feelings of hate instead of actual crimes. At a House of Commons Justice Committee meeting, Conservative MP Andrew Lawton questioned whether the Combating Hate Act would allow online speech to be prosecuted under new hate motivation provisions. Fraser confirmed the new bill will apply equally online as it does in real communities, meaning social media posts could fall under its scope. And there's the 5-minute exchange here, and you can see this is the 5-minute exchange here. We listened to quite a lot of it. We listened to almost 4 minutes of it yesterday because I hadn't seen it before. I've just seen it when I was showing it to you on the show yesterday. So what does that mean practically? If you post something in public, like the Lululemon millionaire guy did, Lululemon founder was fined $600 for putting up a sign on his own private property at his house that called the NDP communist. Where's the lie, though? Why was he fined $600 for this statement of fact? Sorry, I'm trying to clear this error, but it doesn't want to go away. Billionaire Chip Wilson fined $600 for unauthorized election sign targeting BC NDP. Okay, so maybe under the Election Act, Lululemon founder's sign calling BC NDP communist amounted to third-party advertising, says Elections BC. I don't know about that, right? So you're not allowed to accurately describe somebody. These behaviors are what communists did in history, trying to draw that line and paint that picture using just language and tweets is kind of hard sometimes. So you have to be direct and say the words that you mean, right? Like I can't say, that thing that they did that one time that turned out real bad, right? Like it doesn't work. I couldn't do this show if I wasn't allowed to call people communists if they're being communists. Man, I should have maybe named the show Communists! ! Anyway, here's the rest of this article. We're walking into dangerous territory where Parliament empowers the courts to decide what Canadians feel, he said. The bill creates a standalone hate crime category for any offense motivated by hatred, with penalties up to life in prison in serious cases. It also makes it illegal to display or post symbols principally used by or associated with a listed entity, including terrorist groups. Critics say this language could take historical art or artistic could target historical or artistic expression. Is this artistic expression? Talking about the news, does that count as artistic expression? I guess so. Civil liberties groups are concerned about how the law defines hate, as Bill C9 describes it as, quote, detestation or vilification stronger than disdain or dislike, leaving judges to decide what qualifies. John Carpe, president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, said the vague definition turns emotions into a crime. Bill C9 declares that the illegal emotion of hate is something stronger than dislike or disdain, he wrote in the Epoch Times. Ultimately, the muddied waters of Bill C9 still leave the existence of hate to be decided subjectively by police, prosecutors, and judges. Another major change is the removal of a safeguard that requires the Attorney General's consent before hate propaganda prosecutions could proceed. Under Section 3, that oversight is repealed, meaning police and Crown attorneys can act independently. So they're trying to create a situation where police are deciding, yep, this is hateful, let's go get them, guys, right? And then 3 or 4 officers show up at your door and arrest you for a tweet, and you say, what? When did I even post this? And they say, 5 years ago, and somebody was made to feel uncomfortable. And then presumably you get a fine, or maybe more than that. I don't know. I don't know why they'd be arresting you and putting you in handcuffs with a fine, but this is Canada, and they're trying to crush people under their boot heel at this point in time. Here is Wall Street Apes. He says, the UK is finished. UK resident says, now I have a criminal record because I wrote in the Critic magazine that my stalker was a man, because he is a man. Truth will not protect you in this modern Marxist circus that we are in right now.
I now have a criminal record because I wrote in the Critic magazine that my stalker was a man.
Because he is a man.
He is a man, yes, but the police said that misgendering him was contrary to the Online Safety Act because it was spreading false information and had caused Lindsay Watson serious, non-trivial psychological harm. I now have a criminal record because...
That's pretty wild, right? So the UK is not a free speech, not somewhere to go for free speech. Somebody's saying the computer didn't like the flags? Darn, I didn't mean to do that. These, it didn't work. Did it not work? Yeah. But that's very, very concerning. Ryan says the Lululemon founder got fined for calling the NDP communist, yet this leadership candidate of the NDP proves him right by calling for a government-run grocery store. This is not a good idea. People will not have enough of anything. We'll have bread lines. Brian Lilly says bread lines and like terrible service. Think if healthcare is this bad and the government's delivering that, think of how bad the food service will be. Here is the NDP guy. It's a minute 20. Do we want to listen to socialized government-run grocery stores? Maybe not. We're just going to keep moving. Basil the Great says, counselor reported to the police for saying she was born and bred in Falkirk. As soon as she says it, she looks like disappointed in herself and she looks like she's done something wrong. To me, the number one, I grew up hearing that phrase. Like that's almost just a turn of phrase that is used in England, right? Born and bred here. And whenever my mom would say it, I always would picture a giant loaf, like a giant piece of bread with like googly eyes, like walking around, like born and bred here. I thought, what? Anyway, because I was a kid. Anyway, here is the exchange, and you can see the disappointment on the counselor who's on the left when she says this, and the news person, propagandist, says you can see why people would be concerned about reform with language like that. You know, like, oh, how dare you say born and bred here? Referred to the police. The tweet says, listen, counselor reported to the police for saying she was born and bred in Falkirk. Unbelievable.
Trying my hardest to bring community cohesion. I've been overwhelmed with the contacts I've had from people within Falkirk. And, you know, there is a true unrest, and it's scary. It's scary as a local resident, somebody who's born and bred here. I shouldn't have said that.
I shouldn't have said that.
Well, do you see why this is? People sometimes think that reform are very much against having people here.
It just came out.
That's unfortunate for you, I guess. But ultimately, do you see why people who aren't from here, who have maybe made their home here, are annoyed when they hear an elected official say that people are born and bred here?
No. Picture a big piece of bread with googly eyes walking around. Okay, born and bred. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make me sad. If I say, you know, if I can't even think of a thing that I would be upset about if somebody said to me, that didn't happen, or blah, 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 blah. Like you can't say that because it upsets me. I can't think of a thing that I would get upset about if some random was like, I'm born and bred here. I'd be like, okay. If I was in France and the French politician said, you know, I want to represent people, I was born and bred here, and I'm part of the fabric of this community, and blah, 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 blah. I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, this French guy, born and bred here. Like, what? How is this offensive? It doesn't make any sense. It's not rational. This woman looks like Rachel Gilmore. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like half the size of Rachel Gilmore now, but you know, you can see the shadow of Rachel Gilmore there. Hate will not be tolerated. Here's Markham. In Markham, Heather's reporting, you're not allowed to mention Muslims and immigration anymore because an immigrant assaulted an immigrant. So, right, here's the explanation. City News.
So the National Council of Canadian Muslims, they're calling for real change here. They want all elected officials to stop using Islamophobic rhetoric, particularly when it comes to discussions around immigration and whether or not immigrants or Muslims belong in Canada.
So you're not allowed to even question it.
The National Council of Canadian Muslims, they're
the National Council of Canadian Muslims, because this happened. Don't even say anything about that, right? Wild. Dane, who is a MP, says, I think that he's a Canadian MP.
Appreciate.
Yes. Sometimes I have MPs from England, right? So just wanted to double check. Dane says, shameful. Minister admits he has not met with a single Christian congregation targeted by hate-motivated arson. It is interesting because if you are coming in saying hate-motivated crimes are top of our list and we need to deal with these things, you'd think you'd talk to some of the the congregations of the churches that have been burned down from hate, right? Here we go.
He was talking about the rise in hate in Canada and the meetings that you said you've had with synagogues and mosque communities. Are you aware that 123 churches have been burned, vandalized, or desecrated in the last 4 years in Canada?
Mr. Lloyd, I'm aware that a number of places of worship, including churches, have been vandalized, yes.
Have you met with any of those congregations, Minister?
I have not met with those specific congregations, but I have met with many members of different church and faith groups.
You haven't met with any of the members of the congregations in Canada, churches that have been subject to hate crimes over the last 4 years in this country?
I have not, no.
Is it because hate crimes against Christians aren't a priority for this government, Minister?
That's absolutely incorrect.
Well, you said you met with synagogues and mosques, which I do appreciate. Those communities need your support, Minister, but Christian communities also need your support. Why have you not met with any of those communities, Minister?
Well, I can tell you that I meet with faith leaders. I meet with Christian leaders across Canada all the time.
Thank you.
I've met with...
I'm going to move on to the next question.
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't like how he was saying, is it because this isn't a priority for you? I would have preferred that he just lead with asking why, but I don't think that Anna Sangri's answer was very good. But they never are because they're liberals and they don't like to answer questions. Here's Viktor Orban, and Carter says, holy cow, Viktor Orban has banned LGBTQ propaganda from Hungary schools. Quote, the mother is a woman, the father is a man, leave the kids alone. Full stop. End of discussion. Great. When can we import him here? Let's do that. Dr. Leslyn Lewis says, if Liberal Bill C-8 were truly about security and privacy, you would expect the government to consult its own privacy commissioner. Yet the commissioner's office was never contacted about the legislation. Once again, the Liberals have shown that their priority isn't protecting Canadians' security, it's centralizing power in the government and minister's office. So the Toronto Sun is reporting privacy commissioner not consulted on cybersecurity legislation. Bill C-8 would give the federal government power to deny internet products and services to any person it deems an online threat. So, yikes, right? Like that's not good. And it paints a very concerning picture, particularly when you look at how things have been actioned already up to this point with the Lululemon guy being fined $600 for posting what essentially was just a statement of fact. Right? So what does that say? If during the back and forth between Lawton and Sean Fraser, Lawton was saying things that would have been okay to say on the internet now will be illegal. Is that right? And Fraser says, yeah, the legislation will apply to online. And so I don't know if they're going to go after, during election season, everybody who calls the NDP a communist because that amounts to political advertising. But I can't imagine them justifying that. But I think that they are going to try and chill speech in that way. I just don't know. Like, I mean, they've already chilled speech very, very effectively in England with arresting Lucy Connolly, right? Arresting people, making an example of people, not doing it to too many people, but doing it enough to say that, yes, we will do it, and like, don't get in our way. And people will comply, right? So it's very concerning what's happening in Canada right now. Here is the Antifa files, and apparently Antifa doesn't exist. Here's a 1 minute long montage of the latest talking point that's been rolled out, and it's saying falsely that Antifa doesn't exist. And here we go.
There's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa.
Like, I don't even know what Antifa is. There is no group.
It's not even like far-right groups like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Compared to right-wing extremists, Antifa-linked violence is rare and limited.
It isn't an organization. It is a in many ways mythology.
It's not like the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers, sort of defined terrorist organizations with leadership that leads violence. It's not a highly organized movement. It's a moniker.
So we'll just leave it there. It's the whole rest of the minute is the same, right? They're all saying it doesn't actually exist. This guy says, "Hey Jimmy," and all of you people who are pretending that Antifa doesn't exist.
Hey Jim, you said this.
There's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa.
The network that you work for has plenty of articles on Antifa, Jim. What is Antifa? Antifa protesters showed up in Portland. There is a Antifa.organization website, Jim. Antifa handbook on Amazon. Antifa out there in the streets. Antifa members. Antifa flag. That's interesting.
We're fucking done with people like that.
And that was Antifa in action. I hope this helps, Jim.
There you go, right? So Antifa is actually quite active and quite organized. Juno News says a prominent British Columbian far-left, quote, anti-fascist group has strategically rebranded from Vancouver Against Fascism to Democracy Rising. So they will shapeshift and they will do anything they can to get around Trump's branding and labeling and declaring with a pen, right, legally, that Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization, and so they are trying to escape accountability for their actions up till now. Andrew says leaders in several Antifa organizations have fled overseas to avoid investigations and potential prosecutions by the United States. They also shut down their donation websites as a precaution to shield their funders. Anarchists have no place in America. A lot of them are coming to Canada, but some of them are going to Sweden. So it's a very interesting situation. A lot of people are saying Trump should institute the Insurrection Act and do it sooner than later. And other people are saying if he does that, he'll look like a tyrant, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's probably a good idea to arrest all of the Antifa people, but it's going to send shockwaves through a lot of governments like Canada, maybe the United Kingdom, maybe Australia, maybe other governments too, are going to be on the hook for funding a lot of these things because I think the money goes directly to them. And so what happens then, right? So how does that play if friendly governments are funding a destabilizing domestic terrorist organization in the United States? How does that look, right? And so it's, man, like, and we got to talk about China. We've got to talk about all sorts of stuff. So there's lots of conflict on the horizon, despite Trump being a peace president, right? Or a peace-bringing president. No Nobel for him. But it's a very interesting situation regardless. And we're not out of the woods yet. And with that, I've got to say goodbye to the stream. If you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com.